Hello. In this video, I'm going to show you how to find out whether your music sounds as good as your favorite artists or people you really respect. And you might think, well, that's really easy. I just load up one song against the other in my computer, compare the two, and whichever one I prefer sounds the best. But it's not that easy. I'm going to demonstrate that to you using two versions of the same song. So here we have two versions of a song that I mastered in the Home Mastering Masterclass. It's the first song in the course, actually, that I work on. It's called Obvious. It's written by Nicholson and Josef Sykora. It's a great pop tune, and these two versions are subtly different. In fact, if you're not listening on high-quality headphones or speakers, you may not pick it out. I'm not going to tell you anything about them. Let me just play you the two versions, and you can see whether you can hear any differences, and if you can, what you think those differences are. So I'll play you this top version first.
We're alive. It's obvious that the rain falls from the sky. It's obvious that a dream feels really bad. It's obvious that one day we'll die. So live what's left, keeping us alive.
And now I'll play you the other version.
We're alive. It's obvious that the rain falls from the sky. It's obvious that a dream feels really bad. It's obvious that one day we'll die. So live what's left, keeping us alive. We're alive.
So there you go. As I say, the difference is pretty subtle. You may or may not have picked up on it. If you want to listen in more detail and decide for yourself before I tell you what's going on, rewind the video and listen again now. If there's a difference that matters to you between those two versions, you would probably have chosen the top clip as sounding better. And you might well have thought it sounded a little bit brighter, a little bit clearer, a little bit punchier, more weight in the bass. Maybe the stereo imaging was better, maybe it sounded a bit wider, or it's possible you preferred the lower clip. But most people go for the top clip. Now, here's the thing. They're both exactly the same. The only difference is that this lower clip is being played back with a level of half a dB less than the upper clip. So they're exactly the same clip. They have the same processing on them. They're EQ'd exactly the same way. They have the same amount of limiting. It's just that the top one is half a dB louder. And louder changes the way we hear sound, the way we hear music. It changes our perception. Nobody knows exactly why. It might be an evolutionary factor. Things that are closer sound louder to us and deserve more of our attention because they could be a threat. But the fact is, the more you turn up the music, the more bass and treble people hear, and generally the better they think it sounds. And of course that's the root of the loudness wars, which is a whole other video. But now think what a problem that causes us if we want to compare our music with a commercial release, something by a different artist. You think about all the things that could be different, the arrangements, the vocals, and the mix, and then you throw in the fact that even half a dB of level difference can make things sound different. And suddenly you have no idea what you're hearing. When you compare those two things, are they really better? Or is one just fractionally louder than the other? Luckily, the solution is easy, but I thought it would be interesting if I showed you, rather than just tell you, what the answer is. So when I mastered this song for the Home Mastering Masterclass, I got a question from Alexander, who asked, it would be very interesting to see how you would match this song to Katy Perry's Teenage Dream, on which it is so obviously modelled. My guess is that Jack and Joseph would be struggling against the competition from, say, Sweden, with their glossy, in-your-face sound, which they have even on so-called demo CDs. I'm in this game myself, so I'm not making this up. So immediately I was intrigued. I'd never listened critically to Teenage Dream, so I bought myself a copy and I brought it in. So let's take a listen to Teenage Dream.
Until we die, you and I will be young forever. You make me feel like I'm living a teenage dream. The way you turn me on, I can't sleep. Let's run away and don't ever look back. Don't ever look back. My heart stops when you look.
quick bit of obvious. I don't know about you, but I could immediately hear what Alexander was talking about. The Katy Perry track does sound bigger and fuller, and as though it might have a certain something that Obvious doesn't have in comparison. But the very first thing I thought, before anything else, was I can't possibly compare those two things because the loudness is different. You can see it in the waveforms, you can see it on the meters. The Katy Perry track is way louder, so any comparison we make is not going to be objective. The question is, how do you loudness match the music? And the simple answer is, you use one of the new loudness meters. I've done a few videos on these now, so I'm not going to go into them in detail, but basically they use the international standard for measuring loudness, R128. It will give you a better idea of how loud something is than the RMS level or the peak level, because it takes into account the sensitivity of our ears to different frequency responses at different loudness levels. And just for speed and convenience, I'm going to use my Perception plugin to balance the levels of these two songs, but you could do this yourself using any of the well-known loudness meters. So I'm just going to enable Perception and then play a short section of the song and click balance. And I've already set this up for Obvious, so now we can compare both of those songs at the same loudness level. And now that they're level matched, suddenly we can hear far more clearly the differences between the two. There is something about Teenage Dream. It sounds to me like it has a slightly more hyped bottom and top end, and obviously it's much louder originally than Obvious was. But don't forget, these days in the real world, everything's going to get played back at a similar volume, as I've shown in other videos. So this is a good real world way of comparing these two songs. And actually, I really like the extra punch and snap that I can hear in the snare in Obvious, and the clarity in the bass. There's a kind of slightly bigger, very low bottom end on Teenage Dream. I quite like the extra impact in Obvious. Whichever you prefer, having level matched the songs and hearing objectively what the difference is between them, you're much better equipped to judge whether you think your version stands up against the commercial release, and any changes that you might want to make. If you wanted to make Obvious sound a little bit more like Teenage Dream, then maybe a little bit of soft distortion might help, and some extra low and high frequencies if that was the goal. But I don't know about you, but I'm certainly not hearing any magic or secret sauce on the Katy Perry. Once the songs are loudness matched, you can hear them much closer together than first impressions might have you believe. And of course, that's how everybody's going to listen to these in the real world. Whereas if I just disable Perception and play the clips to you again, until you've level matched, you really have no idea what you're listening to. And even though I've been doing this for years now, it still amazes me how powerful this technique is. It's kind of like having X-ray vision for your mix or your master. Reveals really subtle stuff that otherwise could pass you straight by. And I mean, that's the reason that I developed Perception in the first place, to make it easier for people to use this kind of technique. And remember, you don't have to use Perception to loudness match your music. All you need is an R128 meter. Just use it to measure the loudness and then adjust the gains so that they match. And in some ways, that's an even more useful process than loudness matching by ear, which is something that mastering engineers have had to spend years learning how to do and is part of our craft. Because however great you get at matching loudness by ear, there's always going to be an element of opinion and subjectivity involved in that. But the R128 system is what's going to be used by radio and TV broadcast all over the world in the future, and more in the industry. So the opinion of these meters and the matching done by perception, which uses the same system, really do mean something. So there you go. Loudness matching is the key to making objective comparisons of your music with songs by your favorite artists and people you respect. If you don't loudness match, it's not a fair comparison. And when you loudness match, you may find actually your stuff sounds better than you thought it did, and maybe those commercial releases didn't sound quite as great as you thought originally. So there you go. I hope you found that useful and interesting. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel to make sure you get any future videos that I post. Head on over to productionadvice.co.uk, where there's a lot more information on home mastering and music production and recording in general. My name is Ian Shepherd. Thanks for listening.